Things are going to start happening to me now.
You've done all the reading. You're a scholar. You're a professor. You've done all the reading. You've done the intellectual heavy lifting.
More or less, eat shit and die.
You wouldn't know a fact if it begged you all night long.
Want to give the wrong impression because I am very high.
Ran up behind him with a hatchet. Smash, smash, smash.
Yeah, care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you.
Oh, snap. Libertarian Podcast. So this is Tyler Yonke, episode 36. We're going to do another clip show. Okay. New introduction. I've got more things coming on. I'm going to tell you about what's coming up this week. It's a pretty exciting little show I got planned. I think so, at least. And we've got good response on it so far. So with that in mind, we're here. We're ready to go. Everybody, it's a Sunday night. I'm just trying to throw this out real quick. So I did a lot of work and I was going to put things together earlier and it just didn't quite work out. So let's cue off this music and get going. I am Tyler Yonke. This is the Libertarian Podcast Review. What do we do here? We review your podcasts, try to find those libertarian artistic stars you just didn't think you needed to know and have in your life. But here we are, and this week we've got a smattering of them. I've done a lot of good work here. I found some new podcasts over this last week as well, which I've really enjoyed. So I thought we'd introduce you to some of them. I think I'll just give you an introduction real quick. We are doing Unraveling with Jocko Wilnick. It's guest on there, Scott Horton. It's a good little show we had there. TrashTawk. One clip there from Andy, TrashTawk, and TrashTawk. That's what I'm going to call him. He's going to be the guest host with me on Thursday with Andy, Drew, and Nick. They had a little thing going there. I thought it was a pretty cool concept. We're going to give you an idea of what Kill Liberty podcast's idea are, maybe a snippet of the totally stealing the idea. Am I stealing the idea or am I just saying this is a great idea and I want to do something similar? I think it's great. It's the Kill Tony idea. And we're going to do that with your podcast and we're going to do a live show on Thursday. So come in for that. Ignore the rant. I do have some of that. Cole on Tower Power Hour, ridiculous claim he made there. Ben Shapiro with Bill Maher and John Stossel show. And then the one I came across, and I don't know who this guy is. I just haven't checked out his podcast, but the Unfit Statesmen with Zach Brown. Dude is hilarious and very informative. So we have a clip from here today, and I just blew through a bunch of his episodes today. I listened to this one specific one called Keto versus NATO. And then I listened to it with Reed Coverdale. It was an awesome episode there. Listened to his own one talking about TikTok. Dude is just funny. I've seen him on Tower Power Hour. He's a funny guy, but he's very informative and he can ramble and do it in a coherent and funny way. Okay. So I just thought, this next week we're going to Thursday. I put out the tweet and we're going to have some people. I'm going to have them, and just to give you an idea of how that goes, I'm going to have them kind of in the waiting room. I'm probably going to stagger them. I would love to do just random. Hey, here are, but I thought it'd be best because I have to give out the links. So it's not like you show up and then you're able to do this. But the idea of Kill Tony is he does stand-up comedy. We're not doing stand-up comedy, but it's anything goes. If you want to try that, that's perfectly fine. He pulls people out of a bucket. They come up on stage. They have a minute to go. At the minute, there's a little meow, this a cat that does. And then about 25 seconds later, if you're going over even that, they have this bear that sounds. So I've got some sound effects going as well for ours. We're going to basically have you come on, whoever wants. I've got about 6 or so, I think, people right now already signed up. So we'll throw them in and they're going to have a minute to just tell us about anything they want. Their podcast, that's kind of the idea. Tell us about your podcast. And then Andy and I are going to either critique it and have talk with them for 10 minutes or so. Then we'll bring on the next one. And maybe if those are interesting ones, we'll have them stay on and be on the panel with us. And so you can talk about anything you want. I don't want to know ahead of time what it's going to be about. So we have a bunch of good guest lineup. I've got a sponsor coming on the show for that one specifically. And I think we're going to probably keep them around for quite some time. and some iterations of that. So, that's just kind of what we have going on. Okay, Scott Horton, he goes on Jocko Willink. I don't know if you know Jocko. He's this meathead military guy, but is he? And this is why I'm featuring this, because I've seen Jocko on a few things. I used to think about him. My paralegal is a vet, a Marine, and he loves Jocko for like the motivation and all this pumping him up stuff. But I've heard Jocko before talk about the My Lai massacre, and that his way of doing it was not you're trying to skirt the issues as a military person or anything else. His thing then was really talking about leadership, and that whole fiasco and tragedy really went down simply because of leadership not being the right people in charge, and how important that is. And so anyway, I thought it was a fantastic segment that I've heard him do. I've heard him on other podcasts, and I think he's a good guy. So to me, I was like, hey, Scott Horton, the most, prolific libertarian anti-war, he runs antiwar.com guy out there. This will be an interesting podcast, and it's 3 hours and 1 minute, 3 hours, almost 3 hours, 2 minutes long. Jocko's Daryl, I think, is his co-host. He seems to be quite I think he's pretty libertarian. He knew about Dave Smith. He just was pulling these things out of his head. Jocko says some amazing things in here, and I think you need to give it a listen. I think Jocko maybe doesn't agree with everything. He just didn't give any pushback. He just talked and let Scott, and Scott just goes. And to some extent, I was hoping for a little bit more back and forth, honestly. But Scott lays it out there, and for Jocko's military background and his military viewers and listeners, this was phenomenal. I just think it was a chance that you don't get often. And of course, Scott is amazing and blows it just out of the park. So let's start in here. What I want to start, it's not on YouTube, so this is the way we're going to do it. And it's called The Unraveling with Jocko. And I thought we'd just play his intro here, kind of talking about some of the things, and then we will go. So his first bit, the intro. Let's go. Play it away. Jocko Willink.
First interviews that I ever did, even before, it was actually before I did the Tim Ferriss interview. There was another interview that I did that was for a series about the war in Iraq. And I was asked in this interview, what it takes in war to win. And the answer, and you can see this on the YouTube if you want to go watch it, I say that it takes will, two kinds of will. The first is the will to kill. And when I said that on the actual interview, what I actually said didn't get put in here. I said it takes the will to kill. And the series is a great series, and they did a great job with this, the way this particular show came out. It's an amazing job, but they edited something out that I said. Because I said you have to have the will to kill. And this is the part they edited out. I said not just the enemy. I said you have to be willing, and you have to have the will to kill civilians. Because if you go to war, civilians are going to die. That's what's going to happen. And despite your fantasies about things being surgical or things being precise, it's not true. And so when you go to war, it's a bloody mess, and civilians are going to die.
Okay, so I'm going to pop over to where, because he talks about this for a little bit, and I'm just trying to get through some stuff here today with this. But then he talks about kind of that willingness to kill, and he gets into a little more detail here before he enters in Scott. So here, clip 2.
To kill, and when we are going to die, when we are willing to die. And once again, I gave that caveat that when I say willing to kill, I'm not just talking about the enemy. I'm talking about you must be willing to kill innocent civilians as well, because that is what is going to happen. And if we go to war, we better be ready for our own soldiers to die, because that is what is going to happen. There's no other way. The nature of war is death. And so wrapped around that question of when should we go to war, those standards, if you apply those standards, the willingness to kill, not just the enemy, but innocents as well, and the willingness to die, to sacrifice our nation's children in the meat grinder of modern war, you would think if you apply those standards, it seems like war would almost never be justified. And I can tell you that most people that have been to combat will agree with that statement.
Okay, and there you go. So now this thing is so vast. They talk about everything. They talk about Scott's book enough already. And I'll come to the other one here. It's the one about Afghanistan. But it's fascinating. They go through that. They talk about Russia and all this stuff. But I just thought it was interesting also to give some understanding of Jocko. He's trying hard, and some setups that Scott Horton gives him. And the first one we're going to he talks about here is capitalism, and where he talks about and look, Scott did great because he talks to him when he has a chance to push him in that, because you're talking to him probably more from the right. So when you have a chance to do that, do it. And like this one, you're going to hear talking about some restrictions on capitalism, which I know Scott doesn't agree with. He just lets them go. But then he's able to come back to it later, because you hear Jocko, he's got diverging points of view on that. So let's take it away. 18 minutes in or so.
I'm a Ron Paul guy. That's what I am.
Yeah, I look at sort of like a free market scenario where everything that you're talking about, like Daryl, you're right. Like these things, like we press out, but then the market corrects itself, and we say, you know what, we can't get away with that there. And I think that the world, even this world, this complex world, my dad is a conservative individual. I'd say he's probably even like a very conservative individual, but he said to me many times that, hey, the market does need controls. And when you look at the market, you're like, yeah, you know what? It kind of does need some controls. Otherwise, it will be completely out of control. He's told me the same things about, various aspects of the way things work socially. It's like, hey, if you just truly let the free market run in any of these a variety of situations, you'll end up with something that's not good. So that's kind of where I've ended up too, is, even when you look at the way things are happening in the world, I look at, okay, well, hey, we're never going to do anything again. I mean, I don't think any of us would say that that's a smart thing. I don't know. Maybe you would, Scott, but
I'd be for keeping the Russians from dominating Canada. But I think Britain, France, and Germany can fight all of their own battles, and the Japanese do.
Yeah, so
I do think that.
And there's certain times where, you end up in a situation where you look at it and you go, maybe we should do something there, but what do we? And it goes back to the original question I posed, which is, do you want to have innocent civilians killed, whatever you're talking about? Do those innocent civilians, do they think it's worth the risk? Whatever, are they so oppressed that they would rather risk death than continue in the regime, under whatever regime that they're in? And that's not an exact answer either, because
and we're not being asked that right now. I mean, well, they think they are, and they're saying the things like, I'm willing to pay more gas, and it's always the rich people that are willing to pay more gas. And the guy that's like, I have clients. I had a client, we had a trial a few weeks ago, and this poor guy, he's luckily is able to pay me, but he shows up to trial because it was in person with, took a cab there. And when trial was over, he's trying to make a phone call to, get a ride home. And I took him home, and I feel bad, the whole situation for him. But that's just, people are tough life going on. Okay, let's go to the next one here. This kind of Jocko becomes an ANCAP. Let's take it away.
Iraq, what do they have for military? So you think
listen to
this is easy. Then you also
ideas
overlay
from
the fact that you did this first Gulf War, this first Iraq War, and you mopped things up. You took very small casualties, most of them were friendly fire. You annihilated the enemy, and you think to yourself, hey, I think we go minimum 7 countries in 5 years. And you don't have anybody naysaying, and you get rid of people that might naysay or give you the opposite viewpoint, and that's when we run into a problem. And this is, again, from my perspective, from like a free market scenario, this is now a monopoly. You've got a monopoly here where people are just, hey, this is what we're going to do, and there's no counter to that on the free market saying, hey, that's not a great idea, but here's what we need to do. And then you even lose more of that free market because you've got the fervor of the American people and the voters that are saying, hey, all I know is like 3 days ago, I was worried about my wife and kids, and I was working my job, and we just got attacked. And I don't know what the hell's going on, but we need to go kick somebody's ass.
You guys just saw it. Jocko Willink becomes an anarcho-capitalist, right?
All right, so you gotta love Scott pulling that out. Now, once again, you talk about what the Jocko said before. I think it's his dad's warning. Dad, that's a great conservative line. I've heard that much myself. Oh, the unfettered capitalism, look what it did. It's in the early 1900s. No. You look back, there's a lot of, try that without any government involvement and see if those, you're going to have some pendulum swinging, of course, but you're not having that hermetically sealed in a vacuum type of analysis, because the government is always weighing its paws in there. And he at least points it out in the right point, right scenario there. Okay. Is it too late to make a deal? Putin predictions. Jocko, take it away. Oh, we got to share this one screen here. So we have 2 more clips from this interview. And by the way, this clip is 2 minutes 45 in. This whole thing was it took me days to get through this whole thing, and it was fantastic.
Big deal. Look, you can't just say, hey, I want to make a deal now when you're on your heels. You don't get to make a deal anymore. You already gave up that opportunity. You gave up that opportunity when Putin committed troops to doing the invasion. You already gave up the opportunity because he's committed now. So you have to come back and say, all right, stop. We got you. I understand. I respect what you're trying to do. Let's stop. Get back over here. And I think there's deals you could work out. I mean, I think that the Donbass, who is mostly Russian people who voted to be a part of Russia, cool. Let's figure that out. Let's figure out Crimea. Let's figure out the rest of the deal, and let's make a deal. But we're too arrogant to get into that mode. And we think that people aren't going to do things. I mean, look, if we didn't predict, a bunch of people didn't think that Putin would actually do this. And now the same people are like, well, he wouldn't ever use nukes. How do you know that? You don't know that.
Yeah, especially considering, like, you got to imagine, like, there's 2 options, right? And one of them we're hearing in the news. The other one's the true one, most likely, is that, like, Putin knew when he did this, all the Russian leadership knew their hell was going to come down on Russia economically and everything else. Like, costs were going to be astronomical. And so either he's lost his mind, like we're seeing on the news right now, or they felt so back into a corner that they were like, what else are we supposed to do?
It's clearly the latter. It's absolutely the latter. And
okay. We are not going to go anymore on that one. I think that we have just one more clip here, and this is just the final closing. And I was always interested in to see how Jocko might actually take this from the close to see what he's going to say about Scott. And he's like, we may not agree, but it was very, very good what he said there. So once again, right in the last 2 minutes here of the podcast itself, this is Jocko just talking about kind of where he at politically.
Well, I'm sure we could go on like this for a very long time.
Let's talk about North Korea.
Let's not. Maybe we'll do that one next time. Good place to wrap up. Scott, thanks for joining us. I know if people want to follow you, you're on Twitter at Scott Horton Show. You have a YouTube channel.
That's right, Scott Horton Show.
That's Scott Horton Show. You're the director at the libertarianinstitute.org.
That's right.
You're the director at antiwar.com.
That's right.
Your books, Enough Already, and Fool's Errand. And you also have one called The Great Ron Paul.
That's
and
right.
You've got a website, scotthorton.org. So thanks for making the trip out here to discuss this stuff. Clearly, I like to hear a bunch of different perspectives on everything. I try and keep an open mind. Like when I'm sitting here talking about, you got to question your decisions and you got to question the way you think. I literally try and do that all the time. And so I appreciate you coming out here and sharing your perspective.
Did I succeed in turning you into Ron Paul?
Well, I've always been a Ron Paul fan. So you
All
that,
right.
that didn't.
That's
take much
pretty
effort.
good.
That didn't take much effort.
All right, I'll settle.
Now that is cool to hear, right? I mean, tearing up. No, I mean, what a great job. First of all, going into there, I was just so interested in to see how this, this podcast went. But once again, Jocko says at the end, I want to hear, differing points of view. And it was evident he let him have the floor, did not, it was fantastic. Like I said, I would like to see if Jocko does disbelieve, doesn't believe everything there, that there would be a little bit more back and forth and you would be able to have a little bit different of that. Okay. Trash talk, not trash cock. This is Andy, our buddy, who's going to co-host with me coming up. And they watched I think it was Jonathan or Patrick Newman. I think they're brothers. A lecture. And actually, I totally enjoyed this one too. These Nick Ashley and Drew Hancock, and then Andy Trash Main had this discussion. They played the clips. They did like a Mystery Science 3000. Theater 3000 on it, and they just made some comments here. So I'm only pulling one little section out of this. Partly it's on the Odyssey, which is great, but it's harder to timestamp things for doing it later. So take it away, gentlemen. Here we go.
I like to tie into that because you saw this during the, well, I'm not really old enough to remember this, not this, Drew, the finer details of it anyway. I've learned about it from reading books and listening to lectures like this, but the rising prices of houses, people thought that was going to keep on going and going, and they thought it was sustainable. And it's like, no, the longer it went, the worse it got, or the worse the crash was inevitably going to be. That's kind of what I'm, tying it into there.
The malinvestment just kind of bubbles exponentially.
the bigger the bubble gets, the harder the pop is. I mean, it's pretty intuitive.
Yeah, that's why people like Peter Schiff are always talking about how like this is gonna burst eventually. You want it to happen now rather than later. And then he like every 6 months predicts a new burst to happen, and then it never does. We have a super chat, Andy, from Autism Powers.
Autism Powers. How do Austrians solve the age-old riddle of what if a retard was gay?
Nick, you have a lot of experience with this, so go ahead.
What are you doing typing my name in the chat like this, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, your fucking MBTI said that you were a retard, right? RTRD?
Yeah. For how many people made that joke? What if a retard was gay? Well, this is Odyssey. This isn't YouTube.
Drop an M-bomb, go for it.
No, I'm gonna drop an M-bomb. I was gonna say, retard strength is probably not good for a homosexual relationship.
And that's where I ended it. I thought that was a solid comment. Boom. So that was look, check it out. It's actually informative. It's a little funny, and those guys do some good stuff. Andy, you're a genius. Yeah, good show there. So I did appreciate that as well. So what is Kill Tony? What is Tyler? What are you trying to do here with this idea? Look, I told you. So I'm going to play you a clip from Kill Tony when Dave Smith was on there. We are going to join it in here, and you can see how comedians come up. He's just finishing off an interview with this one lady. I don't want to get into what she does for a living, but she's got a nice boofa.
Can I let a bunch of bees sting you in the face? I'm used to Down syndrome guys.
Here, Whippets. I would love to have you on the show Thursday. You're so
Whoa,
fucking awesome.
Molly's on the show. Real stand-up show. Dreams coming true. Follow her on social media at How Did I Get So Sexy. There goes Molly Biven, everybody. Are you guys ready for one last special treat? Huh? We have one last regular, everybody. You fucking know it. He's the anchor of the show.
And while they're bringing him up, and I'm not going to pause it, I'll just let it go, just mute it here. They're bringing up William Montgomery. He's their longtime comedian that comes up there, and he does a 1-minute thing, and we're going to play it. Might get us killed off of YouTube. I don't know. Maybe. But I just thought, and look, we're not trying to do a comedy show.
Come on, people, make some fucking noise.
But we're trying to have a fun show, and we thought we'd do it this way. So just giving you an idea of what the Kill Tony idea is.
I got a bunch of hard hitters tonight, so let's see how it goes. Let's see how this first one. Don't blame me for this whole mess. I voted for John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
Should have played his segment with when Alex Jones was on there. I just saw that one today. It was hilarious.
Neil Young says that if Spotify doesn't kick Joe Rogan off the platform, he's not going to let Spotify play his music anymore. Can you imagine never hearing Sweet Caroline again? My buddy just got 5G on his phone, and he says the homosexual seizures aren't really that bad. If he stays in hiding, riddle me this. Have you ever seen Aziz Ansari and Justin Trudeau in the same place? That's probably the best joke y'all have heard in here tonight. That means Justin Trudeau likes to dress up like an Indian person. That's why I was a little worried. Everybody might not know what that meant, but that's the best joke y'all heard tonight, so you're welcome. All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
There you go.
All right, and then they have a conversation with him for a few minutes. So we're going to try to do something like that. Am I ripping off his idea? Completely. Tony Hinchcliffe is amazing the way he guessed it. But I just thought it'd be good, especially for the podcast. If you want to come on there, you talk about anything. Selling your women's hygiene products, feminine hygiene products, your podcast, maybe a rant, maybe try your thing at comedy, which let's go right to that. This is the biggest lie I heard of the week and or attempt at comedy. This is your buddy Cole. This is off my Twitter page, so let's play it away.
Really cool. They would just start going out there, or 9 feet. Let's give it like
no
8 feet. That's
I want the point.
I can dunk on 8 feet. Oh, I want like the 5'4" girl to be really cool. They would just
okay. So what's funny about this is dunking on 8 feet is not necessarily easy. Okay, maybe he's done it. I don't think he's that tall. I'm 6 foot, but you've got to jump high enough where you actually get your arm up and over. And I don't know. That's look at the Toad's short. Jose's short. They're probably even taller than around the same height as Cole, and then Clint. He's the only one that should know better. Say what? Prove it. So I'm waiting for. Let's play it one more time.
going out there, or 9 feet. Let's give it like
No.
8 feet. That's
I want the point.
I
guards
can
to
dunk
be
on
able to
8
yak
feet.
it.
I'm just flabbergasted. I don't think that's true. I just don't believe that's true. I have just a few more going in here, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to fit them all. So this guy's going to come on the show this week, so we'll just ignore that one. Cole, there we go. Okay, so let's go to Bill Maher. Goes on. What's his name? Ben Shapiro, and it was actually a pretty good interview, and I know, and it got me interested because, who was it? Reed Coverdale was there was a clip there about Russia and some other war stuff, and you're like, this is fantastic. There were so many problematic. If you listen to the whole interview, it's problematic on so many sides. Bill Maher's side, it's problematic on Shapiro's side. I mean, for the most part, I'm just like, you guys are both kind of trash. So I thought this exchange was actually kind of indicative of that, where I think they're both right and they're both wrong. Okay, which no, I don't want to send him money. Okay, ready to take it away, Bill.
With T-shirts on the right that say, "I'd rather be with Russia than the Democrats."
Well, that's insane. I mean, that is insane.
Okay, that's
an
the feeling of a lot of people.
Yeah, and on the left, vice versa, for sure. I mean,
well, I don't know if anybody on the left is wishing they'd rather be with another foreign entity than the Republican Party. I think that's some.
I mean,
I've never seen an equivalent of that on the left.
The hatred for Trump in particular was strong enough that if you'd given people
everything that was wrong with a human stuffed into one man.
I just got to pause here so I don't forget about this, but I mean, you got to go back maybe a little bit further. I just saw some lefty friends just lambasting Candace Owens online now for Russian information or propaganda, and I'm like, okay, I didn't really like what she said, but these are the same people, though, when Bush was going to war in Iraq, they were saying the most vile thing. Now, maybe it's warranted. I'm just saying these are the same people that were saying this. This guy, Bill Maher, was saying things about that. And I'm not saying that and you could probably say the same thing at them, that they would rather be, part of a different nation. That everyone, they were saying that on the left. They didn't want to be anything to do with Bush. They didn't want anything to do with Trump. All those things. So it's just stupid comments, but it gets worse here from both sides.
You can't hate them for that.
But I mean, I wouldn't say that about Joe Biden. I wouldn't say that about Bill Clinton. I wouldn't say that about Barack Obama. All presidents who I really loathe. I mean, this is not
right. But they didn't stand with Putin and say, "I believe him over my own intelligence agencies."
Now remember this, because the intelligence agencies, you're fully with them and they say that everything that they're screwing you over. Trump's been a problem with this, that they're spying on him, and the next thing you know, they're believing everything he's saying about Soleimani, as a matter of fact.
I mean,
they didn't rob charities and make fun of the handicapped.
Clintons did, though.
Do a million things that nut did. What I mean is that Barack Obama literally sat with Dmitry Medvedev in 2012 and pledged him flexibility post-election if Russia would back off. What I mean is that the Democratic Party had their candidate. You're saying that's an equivalent to?
I'm saying it's much worse than Trump saying that he believes whatever he believes, because no one took Trump seriously about anything.
What?
You and I had this conversation in 2018.
That's a ridiculous argument for the president of the United States. Oh, don't bother with him.
Did you take him seriously about everything? You took Trump seriously about everything?
He's the president. Of course I did.
Really?
When he was
but you've seen him. Like, really?
I know. Okay. But if you're the president,
he didn't take Bill Clinton seriously when he was banging everything in sight. I don't really see why you're taking.
What does that have to do with this?
No,
I mean, you're talking about what the president.
Bill Clinton in his life is in the comparison is Bill Clinton in his sexual life is frivolous. Donald Trump in many of the things that he does, including his political life, is frivolous. I don't treat him with the same seriousness.
His political life is the life. You can't compare those two things. I don't really care, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect me or the nation what Bill Clinton did in his personal life, his sexual life. It matters very much what the president does in his political life when he stands with a foreign leader who is an adversary, almost an enemy, now an enemy for sure, and says, "I believe him over the people in my own government, my intelligence agencies, the people who keep us safe," and then lied about it when they came after him.
Oh, believe me, in that Helsinki press conference, I went after him with a blowtorch. But the actual impact of that was far more negligible than the impact of Barack Obama saying to Dmitry Medvedev what he said. I mean, Vladimir Putin invaded Crimea 2 years later, and Barack Obama 1 year later was handing over Syria to the Russians. So I mean, like, in terms of actual hard policy, this is one of the problems with trying to gauge Trump that I always had, is that for every other president, you could see a direct connect between the thing they were trying to do and what they actually accomplished. The things they were saying were intended to accomplish a particular purpose, and then it would either accomplish the purpose or not accomplish the purpose. And with Trump, as I've said before, I feel like on his epitaph, it will say Donald Trump, 45th president of the United States. He said a lot of
All right, and Ben doesn't feel the need to. He has to edit that shit out. Look, so I should actually go back here and find the clip here where Bill Maher is just ripping the left for believing the crap that the scientists and everyone are saying about COVID. Okay, he comes right out there. He says it, but then here he's got no. You're not believing the intelligence communities. You mean the same ones that said that there was WMDs in Iraq? So you either look and maybe you can take in more nuance, saying there's some you believe, some you don't. You can verify. Russians were putting up bounties against. You remember there's all kinds of stuff here. So it's a bit disingenuous on both of their parts. Well, it's the way it is, that you still have your teams you've got to cling to. This is what's great about listening to Scott as an example. He just goes through, we just talked about there with Jocko, and he goes through the history and the timeline. He doesn't give a shit which president was in charge at which point to make sure that he's more protected or not, or you really dig into this one. Reagan's in there. If Reagan's doing something wrong, screw it. Clinton's in there. Clinton's doing something wrong. Screw it. You're all getting lambasted, or you're getting praised, but not based on that you're part of my party. And that's the problem you still have with these two guys, is you've got to, hey, I don't want Trump to look bad over there because your guy's worse. And so then they still are playing this game. And this is the problem you're going to have. So I'm not a big fan of that kind of stuff. Okay. John Stossel brings on Ron Paul for an interview, and it went about as actually, look, John Stossel, one, he's got a beard now. Okay, that's fine. But two, he does a really good production videos. Okay. And, it cuts it up a little bit so that you can't tell if it's super smooth on the full on interview, but, if there's some things edited in and out, but I thought it was really good. And so let's go to Ron Paul being interviewed with John Stossel. That's not the one I want to start with. I want to start with, actually, this one's 4, this one's 14, so that one goes there. Let's stop sharing this, and that one's there. Okay. And then I need to get the very first one. Okay, let's just have to wing it. So we're going to start off right from the beginning with him interviewing Ron Paul, and he gives a little breakdown, kind of some reminiscing of last time we interviewed him.
I don't like talking to politicians, but Ron Paul, he's different. He's the founder of much of our movement. He was talking about free markets and limits in government long before I had a clue how important they were. In 2007, ABC aired a long interview I did with Paul.
That's what freedom is all about, trusting that individuals can make better choices than government can make for us.
Now, 15 years later, we talk again. You fought for liberty for a long time. We ran for president 3 times, once as a libertarian, twice as a Republican. You lost, but did you make progress?
I guess I'm not going to be the judge of that. I don't feel badly about it. That first one was a pretty weak campaign in a conventional sense with the Libertarian Party. And I knew about that, but I wanted to get a message out. Even when I ran for Congress, my main goal was getting a message out. So it depends on how you measure it. People who would measure my success in Washington as a total failure, he had no power. He really didn't pass much legislation. I got some attention on the monetary issue and other things and the war issue. But since that wasn't my goal, I don't know. Somebody else will have to judge that. Yes, it was a very, very beneficial effort that I made over the years.
Okay, good intro. No problem there. We love you, Ron Paul. Let's go to the next one. 15 years ago, kind of what should government do? He does talk about his vote, which I think there's some things you should actually check out this interview, because it's always good. Look, it's not difficult on a Ron Paul to talk about, like, hey, you voted for. Did you vote for the Iraq War? I think he did, or some of that provision there, and they talk about that, and he owns up to it. But even right away, I think there was some misunderstanding or some backpedaling he did. So let's go here. 422 in. Next question.
15 years ago, when you were running for president, I interviewed you on ABC. Here's a clip.
What should government do? Protect our freedoms, have a strong national defense, look and take care of our borders, have a sound currency.
Today, government does much more than that.
Somebody might conclude, well, there's been no success. But I'm an optimist, because I think there's been a lot of success. not in Washington, D.C. You can't measure anything up there other than the fact that you realize how much it's needed in the area of ideas. But I would say the libertarian message is much stronger. When I went to Washington, nobody used the word libertarianism, and nobody was caring about the Federal Reserve. Today, a lot of people are talking about the Federal Reserve and what's going on, and people know what the word libertarian means. The ideas are alive and well, but it's hard to measure. If it's the only measurement is the U.S. Congress, we're not going to see that happen. Matter of fact, the people in Congress right now, the large majority, have nothing to do with the progress in the world. For instance, I work closely with the Mises Institute. I think it's groups like that that are teaching young people and influencing young professors in universities that teach, the right kind of economics. I think there's so much more of that now. So, no, I think that on the short run, you can see some successes. But I think on the long run, there's a lot more people who understand and want to know more about Austrian economics, but we still are outnumbered by those who just blindly look to all the Keynesian economic theories that are completely wrong, but they're failing too.
All right. Yeah, they are failing. But anyway, that's that part there. So let's go to the last clip we have. And this one is, he actually plays the Giuliani clip that everyone kind of knows Ron Paul for. A lot of you people came into the movement via that clip. So let's go here.
People were frightened, and the politicians were saying this: if we don't attack them there, they'll attack us here.
And I think the opposite is true. I think the fact that we occupy their territories and we have angered even more people now.
You still think that?
Yeah, I think more people agree with me now than they did back then, because that came up in the debate, with Giuliani. And some people said that was the moment I gained more supporters than any other one moment in all those years.
Have you ever read about the reasons they attacked us? They attack us because we've been over there. We've been bombing Iraq for 10 years. We need to look at what we do from the perspective of what would happen if somebody else did it to us.
Wendell, may I make a comment on that? That's really an extraordinary statement. It's an extraordinary statement as someone who lived through the attack of September 11.
This is
we invited
dentures
the attack
making that
because
noise?
we were attacking Iraq. I don't think I've ever heard that before, and I've heard some pretty absurd explanations for September 11.
Remember when how badly he failed in the election?
If we think that we can do what we want around the world and not incite hatred, then we have a problem. They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there. I mean, what would we think if we were if other foreign countries were doing that to us?
Was that Ryan's bell?
Because I was arguing this case that our foreign policy has something to do with it. He said, that means you're blaming America. I said, no, you have to realize they're over here because we're over there. And nobody listened to what bin Laden was saying. He supported this whole idea of 9/11 is because of what we were doing in Iraq, bombing and killing a lot of people, that we had troops in Saudi Arabia and we supported Israel over the Palestinians. Those were his reasons for it. What were we told? What were the American people told? Oh, yes, they don't like our freedoms and our prosperity. Those was just lies.
Right. Lies. And you get that with that stuff now. And it's so interesting. I played clips on the last show from the Fifth Column where a guy there was, I remember who he was actually, where he was basically saying, if you're criticizing any of this, you're just a Putin apologist or, you're pro-Russian. That's his way of slandering it. It's like, so, and my thinking at the time and stating it was, no, you've got to understand where you've been. Okay. There's mistakes along the way. You don't want to repeat mistakes. So you've got to figure out, where you've been and why there's problems. And so anyway, so let's go to the last one we have here. Anyway, Ron Paul, good interview on John Stossel. You can see it was interesting to see them both changing over the last few years, their hair and whatnot. This one is the Unfit Statesman, Zach Brown, not from the Zach Brown band, but Zach Brown. And we are going to play his clip here. I got to find this one directly because I didn't tag this one in the right spots, but he gives a great breakdown of the Nazis and their influence. in Ukraine. So this one's going to be at 31 minutes in.
Message, which is
he's humorous. He's very funny. So the first 31 minutes are pretty funny, and then we talks about this kind of stuff, and then ends with COVID. But
influence.
Hey, easy there, buddy. 31 minutes, 34 seconds in, talking about COVID.
Play it from on.
Let's go.
Tried to bring up with in the dinner with his wife and his father-in-law. And Sean, hey, if you are feeling up to it, if you want to reignite a fight with your wife and her father, you can put just play it from here, and I will explain everything to them, so you can then prove your righteous urge to explain the 2014 coup and neo-Nazi presence in Ukraine while having a nice dinner at your in-laws' house. Okay, what do you think about that? Before I even get into the actual bullshit in 2014, let's start with the actual history of the Nazi presence in Ukraine. Okay. In World War II, the Soviets and the Nazis agreed that they would divide their sphere of influence by splitting Poland down the middle. East Poland belonged to Soviet Union. West Poland belonged to the Nazis. Right? The nasties. Then Nazi Germany said, I don't fucking care about the Soviet Union. And they launched the largest military operation in the history of the world, Operation Barbarossa, which was an attempt to invade eastern Poland, go into Ukraine and Russia, and capture Moscow, Odessa, Kiev, and St. Petersburg, I believe. It was either St. Petersburg or Stalingrad. I forget which one. But 4 major cities in Ukraine and Russia. And when the Nazis showed up in West Ukraine, which is Odessa and Kiev, although Odessa's south, but particularly in Kiev, the Western Ukrainians welcomed the Nazis, the Nazi army, and not just a small amount of them. Okay. A large portion of Western Ukraine welcomed the Nazis, so much so that tens of thousands of Western Ukrainians started militias to help carry out the fighting against the Russians and the slaughter of Jews and Polacks.
We're not talking about Charlottesville 300 or even the January 6th, tens of thousands.
Okay. These, there were a few things. There was the OUN, which was the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists. And then later came the UPA, the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, which is kind of it was like a break-off sect of the OUN. And like I said, their sole purpose was to help the Nazis. Okay. Then came along Stepan Bandera. Well, he was already along. He was already along, folks. Stepan Bandera, who was the leader of the Ukrainian Insurgent Army. He, under him, I think believed that like 100,000 Jews had been slaughtered. I believe 100,000 more Polacks were slaughtered. And then eventually what ended up happening was Stepan Bandera actually turned on the Nazis, because Stepan Bandera, his main objectives were an ethnically pure Ukraine and an independent Ukraine. Now, Nazi Germany said, hey, the ethno-cleansing, that's good. Hey, thumbs up for that. But then when they heard that he wanted to be independent, they went, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to give you independence. I don't want to give you independence. So they threw him in jail, actually. And then he ended up coming out and fighting against the Nazis, but still fighting for an independent and ethno-cleansed Ukraine. Okay. Which is hilarious, because recently the news made a huge deal about Russia bombing the Holocaust Museum at Babi Yar in Ukraine, where I believe 33,000 Jews were slaughtered. Yet years before that, the Ukrainian government named streets and avenues after Stepan Bandera, including a street that leads right up to Babi Yar. So it is hilarious to hear people go, oh, they're being, the Jews. It's like, yeah, but they already named an avenue that led right up to it after the person that fucking killed them.
Okay, that's what I'm playing here. That was a great clip. It's just a short, he keeps going on with this, okay? So there's so much more involved in there. And then I found his comedy to be superb, and his conversation with Reed Coverdale to be exceptional. So I'm just not going to play it here. Last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to share the screen here. I'm going to take a look at my Twitter page and my announcement here. Get on the list now and spread the word to join Andy and Tyler. Tell us about your podcast, rant why your community hasn't evicted your mom, current events, comedy take or the feminine projects you're selling, etc., DM Tyler your intent. We've got some people already on the list. If you want to be on there, let us know. Just give me on Twitter, Tyler Yonke, and come on. We'll pull you on. It doesn't matter. Tell us about whatever. If you have a podcast, great. If you don't, if you just something you want to tell us about liberty or your take on whatever, we will listen to it, and then we'll maybe mock you, maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to tell. But here's Andy and I, Waste Main, Tyler Yonke. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good show. At least I think so. I'm excited about it. Yeah. So give us some feedback. Tell us what you think of this show. Any of those podcasts is going to go over them real quick here again. Unraveling with Jocko Willnick, featuring Scott Horton. Great 3 hours of your time. Trash Talk with Andy, Drew, and Nick, featuring the Andrew Newman discussion. Kill Tony. Well, once again, that's what we're going to do. Ignore the Rant with Magoo. I listened to it. I was going to play a clip. Didn't have time, but he's coming on. So we'll be there. Tower Power can Cole actually dunk? I don't think he can. Ben Shapiro with Bill Maher, John Stossel Show, featuring the great Ron Paul, and the Unfit Statesmen, featuring Zach Brown. That's what we have tonight, folks. Join us 2022 at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern, for our Kill Liberty podcasts. See you then. Let us know what you think of my intro and outro. Bye.
Okay, I'm leaving now. Bye, guys.
But she's back. Chick-fil-A is completely overrated. It's not that good. I prefer Zaxby's. I prefer Popeyes.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick. And I guess that's me. Keep fucking that chicken.
Should I vote for Dick Cheney on the Libertarian Party? Do I have an obligation to vote for Dick Cheney?
I would say so.
Yes.
Did it work for those people?
No, it never does. I mean, these people somehow delude themselves into thinking it might, but it might work for us.
That one dude was like, not a podcast. I can't find it anywhere. And they don't have video.
Oh, yeah, Peter Janke. Yeah.
Yeah, I blocked him.
I'll do it. If he unblocks me, I'll...
He'll buy your shirt if you unblock him, Bert.
He's a wigger.
Yeah, nothing cooler than a 49-year-old wigger.
Yeah,
I just started live streaming. Cut me some slack. I'm pretty high tech for a boomer. But anyways,
boomer.